Russia tries to troll Ukraine with a stolen American M113. Picture this: Russian troops roll into Zaporizhia, not in some new T-90M tank, but in an ancient American M113 armored personnel carrier, captured from Ukraine, festooned with both the stars and stripes and the Russian tricolor. Russia today runs the footage as if they've just paraded a downed B-2 through Red Square. And the message is, look, we have American equipment now. The reality is, well, congratulations, fellas, you've just won the privilege of dying in a vehicle that's barely changed since the Vietnam War. The Ukrainians probably left the keys in the ignition just so that it would get stolen. Hey friends, Wes here, multi-branch veteran, law grad, and longtime hater of the Green Dragon. So, why are the Russians so proud? So here's the scene. Russian infantry, grinning for the cameras, proudly showing off their captured American M113 in Mala Tomchatka, just ahead of Zelensky's big talks with Trump and every major EU leader last week. You'd think they'd just captured a top-secret stealth fighter, not a vehicle that was considered retro during Desert Storm. They're flying American and Russian flags side by side, trolling Ukraine, trolling the West, and let's be honest, trolling themselves harder than any Ukrainian meme. Now, to any Russian soldier watching this, let me say, if you think this is a flex, it's not. It's a confession that you're desperate enough to ride into battle in what amounts to a tracked aluminum bread box. So what is the M113 really? Well, let's break it down for those unfamiliar with Cold War dinosaurs. The M113 was first introduced in the 1960s, right around the time Elvis was still shaking his hips and the Soviet Union was just figuring out how to get dogs back from space. Sure, it was revolutionary in 1960. The thing is a box on tracks powered by what is essentially a lawnmower engine and armored with aluminum so thin it wouldn't stop a 50 cal at 100 yards. Ask any Vietnam vet. By the time I was in uniform, the M113 was mostly relegated to rear echelon jobs, target practice, or serving as the world's most expensive porta potty on the training range. Even in Iraq, they were considered unsafe anywhere near the front line. Now, there's a reason Ukrainian troops were more than happy to see the M113 drive off into the Russian sunset. The M113 has two famous features. One, it fits a dozen soldiers in the back, just like a clown car. Two, it offers the kind of protection you'd expect from a can of Faygo Cola at a Detroit garage sale. In fact, its nickname in Vietnam was the aluminum coffin. RPGs? Go right through. Anti-tank mines? You're making toast. And don't even think about drones. One FPV strike and the M113 is a rolling fireball. And unlike the Bradley, which at least tries to give you a fighting chance, the M113 has no real gun, no reactive armor, and no business being anywhere near the line of contact in 2025. It was designed as a battle taxi to move troops behind the front, not in front of a camera for Russian propaganda. So why did Ukraine give it away? Well, let's be honest. If Ukraine lost an M113, it's probably because they didn't want it anymore. This isn't the first time Ukraine has donated death traps to Russia. When your soldiers are improvising with everything from Max Pro MRAPs to homemade armor on pickup trucks and still prefer those to the M113, you know something's wrong. If the Russians think they scored a trophy, they're in for a rude awakening. The first time they hit a Ukrainian anti-tank mine or a drone strike, they'll learn the hard way that the M113's primary export isn't firepower, it's funerals. Now, you may be asking, why did the US send these things in the first place? Well, the answer is that we have thousands of them in storage. They're the fruitcake of military hardware. No one wants them, but no one has the heart to throw them away. When aid packages get assembled, the M113 always finds its way in, like lice at the dorms in Doha. Look, these things barely survived Iraq and Afghanistan, and that was before Russia started handing out FPV fiber drones like Coke at a Miami nightclub in the 1980s. Against modern threats, the M113 is the automotive equivalent of wearing a Shoot Me First t-shirt. Let's appreciate the theater here. Russian troops, desperate for anything that runs, put on a flag show in a vehicle the US Army considered obsolete before Ronald Reagan left office. The message is Trump's America stands with Russia, but the reality is that Trump's America stands with Russian troops getting cooked alive in pre-Vietnam hardware. It's the most literal form of own goal I've ever seen. Meanwhile, back on the ground, the M113 is the slowest, least protected vehicle on the battlefield. It's basically a moving participation trophy. Let's put it in perspective. Armor? Aluminum. Stop small arms, if you're lucky. RPGs? Not a chance. Mobility? It's about as fast as a Walmart rascal scooter with a flat tire. The armament? Well, at best, a single 50 cal, and only if the Russians can read the English manual. Protection from drones? Well, let's just say this is not anti-drone, it's drone bait. And if you really want to impress your enemies, at least capture a Striker or a Bradley. The M113 is like winning the lottery and getting paid in Confederate monopoly money. The real message here is Russia's strategic incompetence. Now, if you're the kind of person who thinks symbolism matters in war, Russia's little M113 flag parade is a masterclass in missing the point. Let's be blunt. If your trophy is a 1960s vintage personnel carrier that even the US National Guard would refuse for riot control, your army has bigger problems than just bad optics. This isn't just trolling, it's a confession. Parading around in a captured M113 doesn't show off Russian battlefield success, it accidentally broadcasts how hollow their arsenal has become. So let's review. Russia, the world's self-proclaimed second military, is so short on functional hardware, it's forced to cannibalize anything that moves, even leftovers from the Lend-Lease program. At this rate, don't be surprised if we see Cossacks rolling into battle on Segways, or Putin announcing a new T-34 retro division. But here's where it gets tragicomic. This flag-waving circus comes just as the Russian army is hemorrhaging equipment across the front. Burned-out tanks, BMPs with more holes than a slice of Swiss cheese, and an armored fleet that ages in dog years every time a drone flies overhead. So what's the plan? Double down on Cold War museum pieces and hope nobody notices the supply chain is held together with baling wire and the tears of logistics officers? And don't miss the timing either. All this theater is happening as Russia tries to project strength on the world stage, right as Trump and Zelenskyy met with half the EU in tow. It's meant to be a message. Look, we've captured Western aid. The best part, though, is Russia's state TV runs this stunt as a sign of battlefield dominance, blissfully unaware that everyone outside the propaganda bubble is laughing at them, not with them. Using your enemy's discarded, outdated hardware to make up your own shortfalls isn't a flex. It's the logistic equivalent of dumpster diving for dinner and telling your neighbors it's fine dining. And here's a final twist of the knife for my fellow armor nerds. In the 21st century, strategic competence means anticipating what you'll need in the next fight, not recycling hardware that last saw action when the Beatles were still on tour. Ukraine's figured it out, pivoting to drones, mobile strike teams, and next-gen artillery. Russia, meanwhile, is stuck in a logistical time warp, proudly flying the flags of its own irrelevance. If that's not the real message here, I don't know what is. So the next time you see Russian state TV parading a captured M113 with American and Russian flags, just remember, sometimes the best joke is the one your enemy plays on himself. If you're a Russian soldier, take my advice from an old US Army infantryman. Park the M113 somewhere safe, use it as a bunker, and walk to the front. You'll live longer. That's it for today, friends. If you've enjoyed watching Russian troops discover what American soldiers have known for 60 years, that the M113 sucks, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Drop your favorite nickname for the M113 in the comments if you're a Vietnam veteran. And as always, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes. Crimea is Ukraine.